authorities, which is like the Noida Authority and the DDA and these are the people who start off this entire sequence of allotting so much land which is beyond the capacity of the builder.
Okay.
So that is done totally hand in glove with these officers, in which each person gets maybe 1 or 2 flats in their name, which is again Benami name, and that is how a project starts off.
Then what is the remedy? How to trail? Trail the money if there's siphoning of the money, and then how to stop this malpractice?
First thing is one request to Supreme Court is they should allow the government to, now that the Benami Act is there, to link Benami, Aadhaar, PAN and bank accounts. If all 4 are linked together, if unfortunately with this privacy thing, the bank account linking has gone with all this. So now if all 4 are linked together, then a person cannot have a Benami account without getting identified. The biometric identification will come. And with that there has to be a single. With PAN number, when it was done, then it was found that people have multiple PAN numbers, same name, multiple PAN numbers. Now that will go only with biometric identification. So all this linking should be there, so that this Benami account problem goes, and then every person, every government official, every bank official and every builder who is siphoning out this money and putting it into Benami account, that will stop. So that is one way out. That we should take strict action on these people, exemplary action, because there is this has been happening for too many years, and many decades this has been happening, and it's only now that things are moving, we are coming down to the consumer interest and all these things.
Things are moving at least in the right direction. Do you buy his argument at least that, what you call the integration of all these things, Benami, property, PAN and Aadhaar, would somehow nail all these offenders somehow?
See, somewhere it will definitely put a check, because everything is interlinked. Today everywhere you have the Aadhaar card, your PAN number is linked, your income tax, everything is linked together. So you cannot bypass all of this. Now that the government authorities have to look into it. Now when the banks are giving loans, for an example, when you're extending a house loan to an individual, we all know that the banks are very careful in doing their due diligence. You have to submit a number of papers and everything. So similarly, when they're extending the loans to the property developers, the real estate developers, they should do the same due diligence and not just look into the bigger money and the bigger project, and they cannot be blind on it. They have to be careful while allotting, while extending them loans, and the authority should be extra careful in sanctioning or giving them the lands, because they have to see that whether they have that capacity. Now in the RERA, they've also made a provision where the home buyers, they are supposed to deposit 10% of the money inception of at the start of the project. Now you cannot, there are a lot of builders who insist on 90% of the money to be deposited with. And then they are nowhere to be seen. There are a number of cases which are pending right now, which the project has not yet started. And there are also cases where you get to see that when the flats are being handed over, the same flat has been handed over to 2-3 buyers. Now all this has to be checked. And how does this happen? You cannot sell one particular flat to 2-3 buyers.
Various buyers.
Yes, so many of these frauds are going on. You're misappropriating the money, you're sending it to and how does the consumer, end of the day, how does a home buyer check into all these things? Now you have to, as a property developer, you have to be honest with your intentions. You cannot keep defrauding the people all the time. Now this is what you have to be careful, and this is where the authorities come into play, and civil authorities, they have to be very careful in what they're doing. They have to put a check, and of course the courts are playing the role, and now it will not be easy. Nobody will be exempted from this. Today it is the Amrapali Amrapalis, tomorrow it will be somebody else. And whether big or small, everybody will come into the loop.
But one set of argument is also, I mean, these are the big players in the market. I mean, when you call the Amrapali, JP, Supertech, but putting behind them bar, because there are a couple of other small developers as well. They have been put behind the bars, but they say that we are now behind the bar, and the people who invested the money in their projects are now all jacked. They don't know who to approach, how to approach, and they're saying that we can't do anything because we are behind the bar. So small developers and the people who invested the money in their projects are not finding the way to get out of the problem.
You see, the same excuse was this thing by Sahara Group also.
Exactly.
He also said, I don't have money, and unless you leave me, I can't get my money, I can't sell my property, they are all abroad, and unless you leave me, Supreme Court said nothing doing. You stay behind the bars, and we are not interested. How you get that money out? And ultimately, after 2 years, when he found that there is no budging, he got it out.
He came around, exactly.
He came around. You see, all this is excuses. So you have to put these guys behind the bars. This is a global practice. You see, this is not we are not inventing the wheel. This is a global practice. Everywhere this is done, that you put these people behind the bars, don't give any bail, don't give them that type of leeway. Don't let them run away abroad, and you will find that ultimately
and that's the best way to punish them. Even the small developers, they cannot just run away with the money, and they will be languishing in the jail for the rest of their lives. So that is the punishment.
That's the punishment. But one thing is also cropping after this RERA has come up, that consumer, what you call the buyers, have started going to the consumer courts if anything changes in their projects. And somehow one news came recently that got the eyeballs as well, that fresh debate of the barring home buyers for approaching consumer courts. In fact, one RERA commissioner stopped home buyers to go the consumer forum as well, because many people are approaching the consumer courts, and this has become a kind of a roadblock.
You see, what happens is that once you have come under RERA and once you are designated a particular this thing, you cannot go and do it in 4 or 5 other forums. So the thing is that RERA has
go to regulatory authority, the real
but
estate
people are approaching the consumer court as well.
That is because the builders and the home buyers were defined as consumers under the Consumer Protection Act, and that is why they've been approaching the consumer courts.
But you cannot go. Can you go to simultaneously?
You cannot go simultaneously. You cannot go to 2 forums. You can approach only one, and you have to declare it in your petition that you've been approaching only this one. You cannot go simultaneously to consumer forum and another court.
Simultaneously you cannot go to 2 forums.
And because RERA is a new act, so that's why people have gone to consumer court maybe 2-3 years ago, and they don't know. So now that is what the thing says, that now that RERA is there, you come to the regulatory authority and